Welcome to the Manhattan Project. This is day 10.
What are we going to do tomorrow when we don't have more than 10 fingers?
We're going to figure it out.
Maybe you'll do 1 and I'll do 10 and we'll do each other hands.
That's true, we get up to 20.
So, 2 nights ago or something, we went to go see An Inconvenient Sequel, the long-awaited follow-up to Al Gore's documentary, An Inconvenient Truth, which talks about climate change, which, depending on your point of view on politics, you may or may not believe is true or fantasy. Take a look at us at the theater clowning around. Oh, look at that overexposure. Where are we at?
We are once again at Regal Union Square 14. It's becoming our new fave.
That's an awful shot. Awful shot. So we were going to go see
Good time.
at 11 p.m.
That's right.
But then we decided to not see it at 11 p.m., maybe see it earlier. Then we said, oh wait, we can't do that. None of the times work out. So now we're going to go see
An Inconvenient Sequel.
which we shouldn't be saying because you guys are watching the review for that right now. You know exactly what we're seeing, right?
That's right.
But point is, we got some tacos.
Oh, good tacos. I got wings actually, but they're also good.
You got queso though, so that counts as Mexican. Hell yeah, we're gonna go see an environmental documentary. What are we seeing?
An Inconvenient Sequel is Al Gore's documentary or fantasy film, depending on your view, as John said, that picks up 11 years after the first film detailed the potentially horrific consequences of climate change. This film picks up where the fight has left off, as Al Gore tries to educate more and more people about this worldwide catastrophe. Take a look at the trailer.
It is right to save humanity. It is wrong to pollute this earth. It is right to give hope to the future generation. Don't let anybody tell you that we're going to get on rocket ships and live on Mars. This is our home.
So Evan, what was your expectation going into this film, having not seen the first one?
Yeah, believe it or not, I've not seen An Inconvenient Truth. I've seen clips of it, and I expected this movie to be a lot more like the clips I saw of that, which is Al Gore basically just giving a presentation with some crazy graphics. And knowing that the last film was so influential, I was curious what this sequel would be like now, knowing that its influence didn't necessarily pay off, and there haven't been that many huge gains for people trying to fight climate change.
An Inconvenient Sequel could have used a little bit less Al Gore's personal life, but still ultimately lives up to its predecessor by being a truly effective and powerful, important watch for anyone who cares about the significant global problem. Do you agree or disagree?
I agree. I mean, the main word that came to mind while watching this movie was scattershot. It felt like, particularly in the beginning, it was bouncing around between too many subjects. I don't necessarily care that much about Al Gore's particular leadership training that he's doing. I just want to know what the things you learn in the training are and what the new climate updates are. And when they get down to the ground level and they show us what it's like in Greenland and they show us what it's like in Miami, then I feel like we're onto something. The more time we spend on some of that other stuff didn't really hit it for me.
Which is why I agree, like you said, the stuff where he's training these people to be leaders in their various communities around the world in global climate change, reform, whatnot, that's probably the most effective and interesting watchable parts of the movie, because that's when the movie is closest to An Inconvenient Truth, the original movie.
So you liked it when it was him talking?
When he's training them, and you're just watching him give the presentation,
gotcha.
which is his training segments, that's the one that's closest to the original movie, An Inconvenient Truth, which I have seen, and which is when I think the movie is most effective, most interesting, most watchable, and obviously most empowering and most like calling to action. This movie really wants to call you to action, obviously. They want you to donate money, they want you to donate time, they want you to donate resources to try to fix the global climate change problem. And I think the movie, if it's effective, it gets people to change and it gets people to consider this problem, which is a problem that I personally feel very strongly about. Like, I'm glad a movie like this exists. I'm glad it's in the mainstream, released wide. I hope the movie is successful in doing that. Like I said, so that's how I'm judging this movie. Is it good? Well, does it succeed in convincing people? And I think those segments are the most convincing by far. When we're going through Al Gore's old cabin, or seeing him in the back of a car preparing for the speech, that doesn't necessarily do it for me. And I think one of the biggest issues with this movie that this movie has to chase, that it has to run away from, that they can't help but feel, is that people on the right politically hate Al Gore. Al Gore, because of his historical career as a politician and as a person and as a huge climate change advocate against climate change, whatever, he's a controversial figure for whatever reason. And I think that if you were to take someone who doesn't believe in climate change, or someone who's indifferent about it, or someone that hates Al Gore because they already think Al Gore is annoying, which I think a lot of Americans think Al Gore is annoying, I don't think this movie tries at all or does a convincing job of letting you put Al Gore's personality to the side and be like, look, forget if you like Al Gore or not, just listen, this shit is important. We will not have a planet Earth in 100 years if you don't listen to this stuff. And unfortunately, I just think that's what you have to do politically. Al Gore is too much of this movie. This movie should not be about Al Gore. This movie should be about the Earth. And I think it's most effective when it is about the Earth.
I also did think, though, that the movie was effective when it was not necessarily about Al Gore, but still about some other parts of the political process. The things I learned the most about was actually going behind the scenes of the Paris Climate Accords, when we learned what the negotiations went through to get India to solve the deal. That they were apparently the big stopper of negotiations, and the main reason was they didn't necessarily want to commit to new sources of renewable energy like solar and like wind when it's cheaper for them. They can get more subsidies and options to do coal-powered stuff. I feel like in the news cycle a lot these days, when we hear about the environment, we hear about things related to electric cars or to not eating beef or this and that, but just it still seems like a lot of the debate and a lot of the solution relates to coal power plants. I mean, we have been hearing that a bit, but these advances that make solar cheaper, why is it that? Why don't we all just have solar panels now? So I did feel like, in general, politics could be a good thing in the documentary, because I certainly learned from it. But I think you're right.
And what cities can do, and what you as voters can convince your cities to try to do or push them to do, as opposed to what you can literally do, like, can you put a solar panel on your roof? It's more important that you call up your local governor and say, hey, we should do solar-powered energy at the new buildings that we build in this town. I
didn't even know. And the documentary has to contend with a lot of really depressing stuff about, Miami's getting flooded all the time, and Manhattan has already been flooded. They predicted that could happen the first one.
Yeah,
and it did.
They have to sort of resist the I told you so aspect of how this movie comes out 11 years later and we're in so much worse shape than we were before. That documentary didn't help.
As far as
maybe it did, but not enough.
As far as positive stuff goes, though, I was really happy to see that a number of cities in America, some sizable ones like Aspen, Colorado, are 100% renewable energy. So, so I think you're right. I think obviously a big part of this movie was the political action side of things. How it fares as a documentary, unfortunately, that's harder to get a narrative out of, just telling you stuff. And it seems like in the first movie, it's just so fiery that it's less about a story from a documentary and more just here's all this stuff. In this movie, they get more of a narrative out of the whole India nail-biter climax, so we know that India eventually agrees, but learning why that's the case at least adds some story.
And they have to show the Paris terrorism attacks, which obviously Al Gore was in Paris during, and obviously a big opponents, people that are opponents of climate change and putting money and time into climate change, like Donald Trump, for instance, our president. One of their biggest sort of arguments, beyond the fact that it's overblown or it's a lie or that the Jews made it up or all this other bullshit, is that we need to focus our time and energy on ISIS and terrorism and other more pressing things. If we get killed by warfare, then we don't care about the earth we need to live on. And unfortunately, by including aspects like that, which you have to, it sort of shifts the narrative a little bit. I'm not saying it shows those things as being valid. It certainly does a pretty good job of discrediting any Republican anti-climate change opinion. And probably, again, one of the better parts of this movie is when it shows that local Texas politician,
a Republican
being I'm about this climate change. Showing that, if this movie would do anything right, and I wish this did a little bit more, is just trying to prove to the people that you don't have to be red state or blue state to believe or not believe in climate change. You just have to be a human of this earth. But yeah, it's a tough movie to review, right? Because while we can take umbrage with issues of how it structures the documentary and how it's sort of some of the hasty editing points and how its pacing could have been a little bit better, we don't want to really discredit this movie at all, because ultimately its message and what it's trying to say I think you and I agree personally
Right.
is important for everyone to see. And if this is the way that you can learn about climate change, this is the easiest way for you to understand it, then you should absolutely see it. It's almost reductive and damaging for me to be like, well, I'll take off a star here because it could have been a better doc. It's just like, this is an important movie to see. It's hard for me to really give it a rating, but truthfully, as a film critic, I'll say that as a documentary, it needs a little bit of work. I like the first movie better. Still, it should be your duty to read up on this shit. If you don't want to see Al Gore's movie, that's fine. But please consider climate change as a reality. Evan, what do you think?
I would say that this movie is like that article that you have bookmarked that you've been needing to read for a while. Because it's pretty good, but there is a reason why you bookmarked it in the first place and didn't just read it right when it popped up on your newsfeed.
So you're saying, like, I don't know, 2 out of 4 stars?
I broke down.
What are you saying, like 2 out of 4 stars?
No, it's like a 3 out of 4. Who cares?
You bookmarked a 3 out of 4?
I'm just saying, stars system doesn't work. That's why I give these funky anecdotes.
Thanks so much for watching this, The Manhattan Project. We review movies every single day, so that means we're going to have a new one tomorrow, and then the next day,
and then the next day, and then the next day, and then the next day. Until global warming destroys Earth, obviously.
Oh, true, absolutely. That's like soon.